All right, we're going to refresh our memories on integers and order of operations really quickly. We're mostly going to focus on the strategies that we're going to use when we see these types of problems. All right, so first things first, we have a very common way that they're going to ask negatives on the STAR test is they're going to put subtraction and then they're going to put parentheses and minus. Well, we know that this parentheses is really just saying, hey, here's a negative. And the reason we know that is because when we look at the parentheses in front, there's a subtraction sign. So this is not a multiplication problem. This is just a subtraction. So I could rewrite it 18 minus negative 12, okay? And I know that I am going to circle, and I circle from the back of the number to the back of the next number and the back of the number to the front. And so I rewrite and I have a positive 18. And what happens when two evils get together? They also become positive. And so this is just 18 plus 12. If you wanted, you could use your integer tower and say, oh, okay, I have an 18 positive and a 12 positive. And the reason I used this and I knew that it was an integer problem is because there were these negatives in here in the original problem. So I know that 2 positives is still going to be positive, and I'm just going to add my teammates together. So team positive has a total of 30 players. So the answer to this would just be positive 30. So again, just a refresher on that integer table and combining those two negatives to make a positive. All right, your next one has a triplet here. So we have 3 numbers. You are going to solve exactly the same way. So first things first, I know that I'm going to double check my parentheses. I can look right here, and what's in front of the parentheses? A subtraction sign. So this is not a multiplication parentheses. It's just a subtraction. So I'm going to rewrite it before I solve. So I have negative 2 plus 7 minus negative 4. And again, I rewrote that without the parentheses because I know those parentheses don't actually represent multiplication. So I'm going to circle from the back of my 4 all the way to the back of my 7. I'm going to circle from the back of my 7 all the way to the back of my 2 and the back of my 2 to the front. And then I'm going to rewrite my numbers. So I have a negative 2, I have a positive 7, and again, 2 negatives get together and make a positive. So I would draw my integer table again. This time I have 3 teams, and so I can see, there's 2 players on team negative. This team has 7 players on team positive, and we have another 4 players on team positive. So before I start solving, I need to put all my team positive players together. If I had 7 and I had 4 more players, that's a total of 11, and I can get rid of those original numbers. So now I have 11 players on team positive, 2 players on team negative, and I ask myself, which team has more players? Well, positive. So positive is going to overpower my team negative, so I'm going to subtract different teams. 11 minus 2 is 9, and again, more players on team positive, so that was a positive 9. All right, my next example has a negative, so I know I'm going to need some integer strategy. I double check my parentheses. That's always going to be my first job. What's in front of this parentheses? A number. So this is multiplication. So I'm going to do 3 times negative 4. And I know 3 times 4 is 12. And I know when I'm multiplying, I need to use my integer man when multiplying or dividing. He has negative eyes and a positive mouth. So I'm going to mark out my positive mouth because that was the 3, and my negative eye because that was the 4. And so what's left is a negative. So this will be negative 12. So adding and subtracting strategy, adding and subtracting strategy, multiplying and dividing strategy. All right, our next review is going to quickly be some exponents. So remember, 10 to the 3rd power is not 10 times 3. Okay, it is 10 3 times. So that is 10 times 10 times 10. So the little number tells me how many times to write the big number. So my exponent told me I needed to write my base 1, 2, 3 times. So I'm going to solve that now 2 numbers at a time. So I know 10 times 10 is 100, and I know 100 times 10 is 1,000. So there's no negatives in this problem, so I didn't need an integer strategy. So this is just 1,000. All right, and our last review, quick review, is going to be our order of operations. So we know this is an order of operations problem because I have lots of operations. I can see exponents and dividing and parentheses and subtracting and multiplying. There's so many operations that I know I'm going to need to create my OoO tower, okay? So I'm going to draw my OoO tower, and I know it starts with a P, and my second is E, and then I need to decide about my multiply divide, so I might need my integer man, and I need to decide about my add and subtract. So I'm going to scan, and I'm going to say, oh, there's exponents. So I know I'm going to have exponents. Oh, there's dividing. So that's the first one I'm going to fill in on my multiplying and dividing. I'm going to write a D for dividing because when I'm scanning left to right, I can see my dividing. Oh, I have parentheses here. So remember that represents P for parentheses. So I'm going to solve everything inside of here very first. And then I have subtraction. So down here on my subtraction level, I'm going to go ahead and write subtraction. And then what is this parentheses? Well, I look at the first parentheses and I ask myself, is a number in front? Yes. So this is actually multiplying. So I'm going to go ahead and write an M for multiplying. So now that I've created my OoO tower and I know I have parentheses and exponents, I can start solving. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start on my parentheses level, and I'm going to say, okay, I need to focus on my parentheses. Well, inside of my parentheses, I have two operations. I have exponents and I have subtracting. So still going to follow order of operations. Which one comes first? Exponents would be before subtracting, so I'm going to do my exponent first. So I'm going to keep my parentheses for now. I know that my exponent is 3 times 3. And I would say that's 9, and then I bring down my minus 1. All right, I'm still going to rewrite everything else exactly the same way. The only thing I'm going to change is instead of doing 2 parentheses 6, I'm going to do 2 times 6. So I'm still working on that same step, so I'm still going to box my parentheses because I'm not quite done solving. So 9 minus 1 is going to be 8. And then I'm going to bring everything else down. Notice I'm doing this one set of numbers at a time. So my parentheses is now officially gone, and I'm going to mark it out. All right, I do have exponents, so I'm going to go ahead and box and solve my exponent. And I always like to write it out. So what is 4 squared? That is 4 times 4. So 4 times 4 is 16. And again, I'm going to rewrite everything else underneath. I'm going to scoot my paper up just a little. And then I am officially done with my exponent, so I can mark it off. All right, now I'm going to work on my dividing. So I'm going to box my dividing, and I know 16 divided by 8 is 2. So I'm going to bring down my rest of my problem, and I am done with my dividing, so I can mark it off. And now I'm going to scoot over to my multiplying. So I'm going to circle the M because that's what I'm working on right now. And I can see, okay, that's 2 times 6. And notice that I didn't need integer man for these because these were both positive numbers. So I have 2 times 6 is 12. And my last step will be 2 minus 12. So do I need my integer table? Yes. So I'm going to draw my integer table, and the reason I know that I need my integer table is because if I have $2, I cannot spend $12. So 2 was positive and 12 was negative. So which team has more power? That's going to be my team negative, and I am going to have a different signs. So I'm going to have to subtract 12 minus 2, and I get 10. So my final answer will be negative 10. Remember, negative 1, and again, 10, because they were on different teams, we subtracted. And that is your recap of integers and order of operations.